These poems which kind of come out of a particular kind of male poet that was around when I first got into poetry, who do the translation work every now and again for a bit of edge. And in my version, they have two translators, and we all know translators really are the superstars of literature and poetry and keep everything moving. So in this incarnation, the translator's job is to save the poet from himself. A poet and two translators. A poet shouts at the stars. Two translators open a window with a finger to their lips. And so a partnership begins. The translators want to stretch themselves. The poet wants the world. Two translators are better than one, he thinks, just to be on the safe side. When the poet begins to write prose, the two translators call a meeting. This changes our contract, the first translator says. Like you, we didn't get into this for money. The poet puts a hand in the sharing nuts, regardless of the many dactyls that have greased them. The translators bristle like canvas tents from the 60s. The second translator leans in. How many words are you thinking of writing? Thinking of writing, the poet says, is like dreaming of sex or dancing with vape smoke. After two more drinks, the translators come around to the idea. Will your prose be visionary, prompting us to invent a new bullseye in our target language? The poet sighs. I'm writing the history of places that never existed. You might never see me again, but I will send you a chapter each month, wrapped in calico. Ignore the postmark from Swindon. At a funeral, the poet and two translators take seats down an aisle. The first translator asks the poet to describe his grief. It's sharp, he says, like a flake of the shard. The translator writes, he feels like shit, and shows it to the second translator. A priest appears and starts the engine on the service. It jolts for an hour and nobody gets up to push it. At the wake, the second translator checks in on the poet. Oh, my despair is total, the poet says, like an unidentified pit conducted for government experiment on the fringes of Norfolk. The translators compare notes over a flimsy plate of heavy pastries. He's sad, like darkness, the first translator says. What have you got? The second translator covertly opens his notebook, showing two words in red ink. He's faking. The translators take the poet to play snooker. The first translator breaks, leaving the poet an easy red. It sinks like an eco-anxious view of the sun, presenting him a choice of colours. Blue, he nominates. Green nominated, says the first translator. I make it yellow, says the second. Both those balls are concealed by other colours. Blue, the poet repeats, adding, that would be an azure horizon on the first dawn of an old love, newly lit by the perspective of age. The second translator glares. Aquamarine horizon. Meanwhile, the poet has accumulated a break of 55, the clearest sign of a misspent youth. The poet and two translators look at three reports laid out on a desk. Today's the day, the poet says, aerating spittle at the mouth, when this endless welter of unhappiness pops. What report should we start with? Young, says the first translator, but the second objects. It's got to be Freud. A mind like his, nodding to the poet, needs the complete works chronologically. The reports are the result of the poet's summer. Psychoanalysis each day, but some days off, also known as his deep swim in whiskey's amber lake. The first translator opens the report. The paper crackles like a starched flag. It reads, I have not come across anything like this in my work before. The patient has no superego. His mind is like a zeppelin, long unmoored from a forgotten war, and his ego can't land it due to the grip and mire of his denial. The The poet moves to the open window. Farcical, he says. Who follows Freudian analysis these days anyway? Let's have Jung. The second translator reads, I offered the clients a range of analytical methods, but his only interest was in sand play. I left the room for 5 minutes and came back to find him naked in the pit, telling my assistant to move beyond the symbolic and join him. We won't be seeing him again. Please find the bill enclosed. The poet has his back turned to the translators looking out to the street. And Lacan. The first translator reads, a fascinating subject. I have never had a patient so openly declare his desire for the other. The second translator looks at the page. That says mother. Where the poet was is empty space. The translators close the window to stop the draft coming in.